Building a Stuart 504 boiler plant, Part 21. Completion of the internal generator drive. The ball races that will support the counter shaft are going to fit in the holes in the pieces of wood. But in order to hold the ball races in position, I'm making some ball race retaining caps. And for this, I'm using a piece of brass. And what I'm actually doing at the moment is using some small chucking pieces, some small offcuts of brass. It would be more logical and much more engineering-like to use a single long piece of brass and make my way down the piece of brass, machining the individual components and then parting them off. But I like to do it the hard way. No, that's not the real answer. The answer is I end up with quite a lot of chucking pieces, and where possible I will use them up because brass is quite expensive. These are very simple parts to make, and the process is as follows. First of all, I turn part of the brass down to 1/2 inch in diameter. These parts need to be accurately machined because they're a push fit into each side of the pieces of wood where the bearings live. At the moment, I'm using a centre drill, followed by a twist drill to drill the hole through the centre. It's important that these holes are not the same size as the counter shaft. The counter shaft is 1/4 inch in diameter. This hole is 9/32. In this clip I've reversed the part in the chuck, and as you can see it's a little bit wobbly, but that really doesn't matter because once it's been parted off it can be reversed in the chuck and the front face can be remachined. In any case, I intend to remachine the front faces of every one of these bearing retainers so they're all the same thickness, and I'll be doing that at the end of this lathe sequence. But in the case of this first one, I left the flange very thick, so I'm reversing it in the chuck, and I'm now going to machine the flange to be a little bit thinner and obviously accurate, so the flange is at 90 degrees to the hole down the centre. Notice how I reverse the tool. That's because the tool is sharper on this back surface than it is on the front. It's time now to just check that everything is okay dimensionally speaking. So I try it against a piece of wood, and yes it is. There's plenty of room in between these bearing retainers for the actual bearing itself. And here I'm making the second bearing retainer in pretty much the same way as I made the first one. And once again I'm using these small pieces of brass. When it comes to the other two, I'll use a longer piece of brass. In this clip I'm checking the length of the part that is 1/2 inch in diameter to make sure it's long enough to retain the bearing. And it is, so I can now carry on with the operation and reduce the diameter to exactly 1/2 inch. I check it frequently with the micrometer. I'm using a piece of emery cloth just to remove any sharp edges. And then, in exactly the same way as I did with the first bearing retainer, I reverse it in the chuck and thin out the flange. But this will not be the finished size. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do this right at the end, so that all the flanges are exactly the same thickness. And once I get the flange down to somewhere near the finished size, I take a finer cut to get a better finish. As I mentioned earlier, the hole down the centre is greater than 1/4 inch, because these bearing retainers are just that. The sole purpose is to hold the ball races in place and not to act as an auxiliary bearing. So after cleaning up the part with some emery cloth once again to remove any sharp edges, I decided to drill out the holes a bit bigger. And I'm drilling the holes 5/16 of an inch in diameter, which is much bigger than 1/4 inch. So the retainers will not interfere with any of the rotating part of the ball race at all. They'll just be used to retain the outer ring of the ball race and not touch the middle bit. So now for the other two, I'm using a longer piece of brass, which is a much more sensible way of doing it. But the principle is identical. The good thing is I don't have to remove the part from the chuck until I've made two of these. This part of the job is identical in every way to the bit you've just seen, so I think I'll speed up the video to just alleviate some boredom. There's not much I can add really, except that the video clip is now running at 800%, and you can see the entire process in a fraction of the time. A quick check with the micrometer, yes that's definitely right, and now I part it off. I was inadvertently lucky making these, because the setting on the vernier on the hand wheel on the cross slide was 1.5 to give me 1/2 inch diameter. And provided that I don't remove the tool from this holder, then it will always be like that. So if I want a diameter of 1/2 inch, I just turn the wheel to 1.5 and we get a 1/2 inch diameter that is perfect. I now have 4 of these bearing retainers, so I put them back in the chuck and a machine across the front on every one of them without moving the tool position and without moving the cross slide, so consequently every one of these bearing retainers has the correct and equal thickness of flange. And what I'm doing here is just lightly touching the edge of the flange with some wet or dry sandpaper just to remove any sharp edges. And you will notice I'm being very careful not to get too close to the sharp edge of the flange or too close to the chuck, so therefore I can retain all of my fingers. And that's the lathe work finished with. Now it's the ultraviolence time. I'm hammering them into position in the piece of wood. I missed out on a chance really. I could have shown my new Teng Tools soft hammer, but I forgot and used my old nylon one, force of habit. I didn't hammer the outer retainer all the way in because I have to remove it immediately I've done this part of the job, so I can sand down the mahogany veneer around the outside of the lower base. But what I want to do first is see if everything works. I threaded the end of the 1/4 inch shaft 2BA to take a 2BA bolt and a washer which will stop the shaft from coming loose. The other end of the shaft will be fitted with the main drive pulley from the steam engine's flywheel, so the shaft will remain in position. The brushless motor, or generator should I say, is now mounted to the bracket that I made, and it's worth mentioning that it's important not to over tighten the bolts that go through the rubber grommets. What I'm going to do is just get them tight enough. If they're too tight, the noise reduction will be ineffective. And once I get the pressure on the rubber grommets just perfect, then a blob of paint on the threads will stop the nuts from coming loose. All I have to do now is assemble everything. The bracket will be screwed down to the wooden base, and I'm going to leave the tension of the tooth belt slightly on the slack side, so there'll be no stress on the bearings on the motor or the countershaft. And when I connect up my DeWalt drill to the countershaft, and the battery's a bit flat so it's doing about 1000 RPM, the generator really goes quite fast. Just this once I could do with some help from the experts out there. Maths is not my strong point. This is what I'd like to know. The flywheel of the engine is 6 inches in diameter, and the pulley on the countershaft driven directly by the steam engine will be 3/4 inch in diameter. The larger pulley on the countershaft has 22 teeth on it, and the small pulley on the motor or generator has 12 teeth on it. My question is, what speed will the steam engine have to go at to spin this generator at about 5000 RPM? After this test, I dismantled everything and I rubbed down the woodwork, and now I'm applying the varnish to the bottom part of the baseboard. I'm really glad this is over. I'm not a real lover of woodwork. All I have to do is put a bit of a skirting board around the bottom, and after I've varnished that, the base is finished. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful.